Hi, I'm Frank and welcome to my woodturning channel. This week's video is going to be part 2 of a video I've just done on a Bravery Bead bowl. And I think as I explained in the last video, the Bravery Bead bowls are a program that a number of the woodturning clubs in Ontario have gotten together with Sick Kids Hospital, and the bowls are donated to the hospital and given to the children who are undergoing all kinds of treatments. And every time they get a treatment, they get a bead. And you can imagine the reason they need a bowl is because these kids are pretty sick and they're getting lots of treatments. And they put their beads in the bowl and string them along a string. So it's just our way of giving back to the community. So in this part 2 of the video, I'm going to do just the lid. Part 1 of the video did the base of the bowl, and you can see here I've got 2 pieces of butternut. It's about 4 inches thick. I've just cut it into a blank, and I'm going to use this bottom part to do the bottom of the bowl, and that was covered off in part 1 of the video. And then part 2, I'm going to take this top part of the blank and create a lid. And on top of the lid, I'm going to put just a little handle for grabbing the lid. I'm going to make that out of maple, and I'm going to dye it black just to give it a bit of contrast. Yeah, so let's see how we do. This is now that top portion of the butternut, and this is side grain, so all of the turning here for this is going to be basically the same as if you're turning a bowl. I'm just going to use my 1/2 inch bowl gouge to true up the outside of the lid. And then I'm going to just proceed on to do some general shaping. I'm just flattening off the surface here, and you can see if you're riding the bevel properly with this tool, the front hand doesn't do an awful lot of work. The tool just glides along the wood, and you're rubbing the bevel and getting a nice clean cut. This measurement from the bowl will give me an approximate location of where I need to fit the lid, and that's just a starting point. And I'll just fit the bowl up to the lid every once in a while just to make sure I'm getting close to the right size. Now, just to refine the surface just a little bit, I'm using a Bedan tool, which you could also just use a parting tool. There, I've got a perfect tight fit, but for this application that's too tight, and what I'm going to do now is just use a spindle gouge to just clean up all of those little edges and give myself a little bit of a loose fit. I don't want the top or the lid to fit tightly onto the bowl in this type of application. Still a little too tight, so I'll take a little bit more off. Now I'm just going to create a dovetail mortise underneath so I can turn the lid around. And the dovetails work really nice because they don't leave much of a mark on the piece, so I can totally finish the underneath side here, turn it, get the dovetail prepared, sand it, and then the underneath will totally be finished. I'm just working on the top profile here. And when I get it close to what I like, what I'm going to do is switch tools and get a sharp tool and just do one final cut, taking off just a little bit of material, trying to get a very good finish. And I'm just going to round the edge over a little bit on the lid so that it's almost like a bead at the very edge of the lid. I'm now drilling a 1/2 inch hole just to accept the little knob that I'm going to turn for the top. Here I've changed the jaws on my chuck so I can turn these smaller objects. And I'm going to make the knob fairly big. I don't want a fancy little finial. I want it to be a fair size so that it feels good in your hand and doesn't feel too delicate. I'm just going to do my final cut on the inside surface with a spindle gouge, and I'm going to undercut it a bit so that the outside edge rests on the lid. It's always good to do a trial fit just to make sure everything looks really good. This is spindle grain now. The grain is oriented in the other direction, so I'm just going to use a spindle gouge and create the knob. And I'm just doing it out of my head, something that looks interesting and is not too weak and fragile. So here you can see the profile that I came up with. And I'm going to ebonize the little knob with some India ink. I think it'll just look a lot better if it's black in relation to the rest of the lid. Just a little bit of wood glue and we're all done. I'm just going to finish these pieces off with some spray, and it's just Minwax spray polyurethane, and it's in a semi-gloss.